welcome to another episode of Monday Muse. To welcome November, the second last month of 2020, and side note, I can't believe it, I'm sure as many of you that we're almost at the end of this year, I felt it appropriate to rant a little bit, but I'll keep it short and sweet about time. So the other day I came across these two terms, one of which you might have heard before, but essentially describing time with the phrases Kronos and Kairos. Hope I've pronounced that correctly. Feel free, any Greeks, to send me a DM with the correct pronunciation. Most of you would be familiar with Kronos, which is where our English word chronological comes from. So that essentially is linear and sequential time. It's how we measure time day to day, and it forms part essentially of our existence, our society as we know it. When we talk about Kronos, it's clocks and calendars. It's almost the modern day commodity to be spent, saved, and wasted. You know, how many times do you yourself hear or say, I don't have enough time, or you're constantly seeking or searching for more of it? And I guess what got me really interested in this whole concept is that when we speak about Kronos, we're talking about the quantity of time, but that really has very little to do with the quality of time. And that's where this idea of Kairos comes in. So Kairos is definitely more the quality of time. That's the sort of question we're asking when we're talking about this. So I think a nice distinction between the two is if we're asking Kronos time, it'd be like, what time is it? Whereas the latter would be, what is time for? And I know that sounds like a super philosophical question. Maybe you're listening to this first thing in the morning and thinking, God, I don't know if my brain can handle this right now. But just to simplify, I guess we're talking about measuring the moments rather than the minutes. And I guess it's that concept of freeing ourselves from time as we know it from the clock. I think this year's been kind of an interesting time where a lot of us, maybe you yourself listening right now, have been at home a lot more than usual, and you found yourself with a lot of additional time, but not sure what to do with it. And I think we've all, to some extent, as a result, experienced Kairos time, whether you've been aware of it or not. Time for some of you during parts of this year may have felt endless or even empty, but I'm positive that everyone's experience with it was slightly different to what they may have normally had in the past. And I think I've always found it interesting how you could have, spent 1 hour doing the exact same thing in different places, shall we say, and one feels like it goes really, really fast, and the other one feels like it goes really, really slow. And I feel like maybe when you're more in the moment, maybe more in that Kairos time really does slow down because you are more present. So the whole point, I guess, of my rant today is, without a shadow of a doubt, we are managed by and controlled by Kronos time. It's just the way our society lives. Unless you're somehow tuning into this episode from an isolated part of the world where you run on your own time, then hat off to you. Hope you're living your best life. But for the majority of us, we do run by the clock. And recently I've actually started meditating daily. So it's something I've always really wanted to get into, but honestly not something that I've made time for at all. And when I was reading about this Kairos time, it kind of made me think that I have been able to integrate that as an element in part of my daily life, which sort of inspired this whole segment, Little Muse, today. So my challenge to you is there a way you can integrate an element of Kairos time into your Kronos-driven life? Whether it be through meditation, whether it be through eating a meal slowly, being present, whether it be maybe exercising is something for you that you just forget about the time and you're super, super present and focused. Just something where you're really just not worried about the clock. I know that's a bit unrealistic for a lot of us in our 9-to-5s, but even on your commute, if you're sitting on the train right now, or maybe later on in the day today, you don't need to worry about driving the train. All you need to worry about is sitting there and being present. So that could be a way you could integrate it. But I think it's a nice little reminder and almost serves as a tap on the shoulder to say that, well, we are run and controlled by the clocks, whether we like it or not. But I think that we can take back the power and make our own moments if we actively try and integrate an element of this in our day-to-day life. I know for me personally, the implementation of a short 15 to 20 minute meditation every single day has had phenomenal difference on my focus, on my stress levels, just in general. And I'm still just doing guided meditation, so I'm not at the point yet where I can just switch off and be silent and get into a meditative state, but that is definitely a journey that's ongoing. And actually in our previous podcast with Scott, so episode 15, he does mention that meditation, even if it is 15-20 minutes, split into 2 segments. So if you can only squeeze in 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, another 5 minutes there, will still have the same benefits at the end of the day, which is quite incredible, because sometimes you think, oh, I can't actually commit to 20 minutes. But if you think about segmenting or spreading it out, perhaps on your commutes or while you're eating or something like that, I think it's definitely manageable. I'd be curious to hear how you guys think you might be able to integrate an element of Kairos time. And when I say that, it really is just a metaphor for time for yourself, a time to be present, a reflective moment where you're not on the go. You're not focused on the clock or what you're doing, in the next 5 minutes. It's about really right now and letting go of the clock. So feel free to shoot me a DM. I've decided to keep this one short and sweet because we do have quite a jam-packed month coming up. I will be posting the November schedule this week, so feel free to check out socials for that. And as always, if you have any recommendations for future guests, or if there's content you've heard or haven't heard that you do want to hear more of, or just have it featured at all, please shoot me a DM. I love hearing suggestions, and I'm always keen and open to your feedback. I hope you have an awesome day wherever you're listening to this from. In listening to this podcast, in fact, you've probably engaged in a little bit of Kairos time. So thank you for sharing and choosing to spend that with us today. I will see you all next week for our first November guests. And until then, stay balanced. And that's a wrap for this week, Balancers. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this episode useful to some degree in either steering or determining your definition of balance today. As always, the biggest compliment for us is if you share this episode with someone who you feel might need it, or if you're on Spotify, you can click follow, or on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a rating or review. If you have any suggestions for up-and-coming podcasts, feel free to shoot us a DM or an email. Our Instagram is @TheBalanceTheory, and our email is thebalancetheorypodcast@gmail.com. Otherwise, you've always got the option of subscribing to our mailing list. We only send you email reminders when the episodes drop, so you get them fresh out of the oven. No annoying spam, we promise. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and until next time, stay balanced.